Hi, my name is Rachel Cobler. I work for the Stanley Museum of Art as a curatorial research assistant. It's been 3 years now on the job and 5 years total as a student volunteer as well. So two of the primary aspects of my job is researching objects and doing prep work for exhibitions. So you see on the right here a photo of one of our recent exhibitions in the visual classroom. This is the end goal. This is what you see when you walk in. But it takes a lot of work to get to this point. One of the main things that we do is we do a digital mock-up of the exhibit so we can move around and kind of play with our models before we go in and do the actual prep work. So I'll give you a little preview of what this looks like. We do this in a software called SketchUp. Here's a little comparison here. You'll see that we have a lot of the same objects. Some of the stands are moved around. So one element of my job is that I take all of these objects, I remove the background from the image file and bring them into the SketchUp model. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today, is kind of the process of how I do this. The object that I am going to be using as an example today, let's minimize this, is a ceramic water jar by a contemporary Native American Pueblo artist. His name is Franklin Peters, and I've had the fortunate pleasure to talk to him directly in my research process. And so it's a beautiful jar. He's a wonderful artist and a wonderful person. You can see that the kind of shape of the jar really makes it a lot easier to carry water. You can see that the edges are kind of tapered in from this very full form, so you don't get water spilling. Not something you want in the Southwest. The design components are really beautiful. I'll go into a little bit of that later. But yeah, just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the things that I do in the museum, things I've been working on at home, and one of the pieces I've been able to research. So let's dive into the process. Okay, so you can see that we have the photo pulled up in Photoshop. The first step of this process is removing the background from the original image. Now I've kept this image pretty small, so we will go in. There's multiple ways you can do this in Photoshop. This is just my process. I select the subject. It's pretty easy because the background is all gray. You can see here that it's kind of gotten some of the details. Zoom in here. But the borders are a little bit funky, so I'm going to go in and refine that. Now, what it has done is it has selected the object, and we want to select the background in order to actively remove that space. So I'm going to invert this. Seems kind of backwards to what you want to do, but you'll see here in a minute. So you could see this crawling outline around the edge of the photo and also a crawling outline around the pot. And so this designates that this is the active space that we're working with, not this active space. So again, the borders are kind of really off. I'm just going to refine that a little bit. This pot is really geometrically beautiful, but in talking with Franklin, I learned that the swirling that you see going on here is representative of the element of wind. And then this kind of like hatched lines, I know it's a little blurry because the image is small, but the hatched lines in that swirl are representative of rain. And that's a historic representation in Pueblo pottery. When you see these hatched lines, you'll see it as a representation of a prayer for rain, which I think is just beautiful. I think this pot overall just kind of is an incredible display of incorporating spiritual elements into daily everyday life. It's a great example of, turning simple objects into objects of meaning and value, even when you use them in your daily life. I know Peter's, sells these as works of art, but historically they were used by women who would carry water back to their homes every day. So the selection is a little bit fidgety here. Just making sure get some of the necessary details, and the border is all smooth around this. There we go. That's probably a lot better. So I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut now to kind of erase this background. It is Control-Delete. So click that and you'll see the background has gone completely white. But we are not done yet. I'm going to use this magic eraser tool. There are the eraser tool options. I'm just going to click in that white space, and then you'll see that checkerboard pattern, and that means that the background has actually been deleted from that photo. So we have one more thing to do before we import this into SketchUp. We want to select the subject, which Photoshop knows now that is just this area around the pot. So yep, there we go. And it's got, accurate borders. We don't need to have it perfectly around the edge anymore. We can just select that and crop. So you see this is taking out all this extra space. So when we measure it out in Photoshop, we want an accurate scale. And when you have this extra space in between, that's going to count as part of the measurement, even though you just want the pot. So then we will save this as a Photoshop file and continue on in SketchUp. Okay, so I have brought you guys into the SketchUp program. You'll see I have my handy little model here. Her name is Lizanne, and she is going to help you guys visualize the size of the pot versus the size of a real human being. So we can measure her height here. I'm going to drag this little tape measure up. She's about 5'5". So we'll see how big this pot is compared to the size of an average human being. Now the first thing I want to do is simply build a rectangle from where we can paste the image of the pot. So I start here at my origin axis and I drag it out so that I know I'm getting a vertical rectangle, and then I just type in the size of the pot. Look at that. Pretty tiny, isn't it? How many of you thought that it was going to be much bigger than that? I mean, that is a small pot. It's so cute. I've actually seen it in person and it is adorable. Anyway, so the next thing we want to do, we have this little square. We're going to take the image. I've brought it into the program as a material. And what you can do is simply measure out the size that you want this material to replicate, and then just click it. It acts like kind of a paint can. You can just drag it around and paint surfaces. So I just click on that surface and boom, we have our water jar. I'll zoom in here for you. Get some of that detail. See, since it's such a small object, I didn't need as big of a file size to make that look good. If I would have brought in an object that's, the size of Lizanne here, we would have needed some more detail in the image file, but this is pretty small. So the next thing I see here is we have this black edge around this, and we don't want that. Actually, that doesn't exist, so we're going to take it out. I am going to drag and select this whole area, You see it's in blue now, and I press Shift, and then I click on this space in here to remove that from the selection. I right click right along these border lines and I select Hide. So now all you see is the pot. To make this a component, I click on the surface and I type G. That's the shortcut in SketchUp to create it as a component. I type in my name, which at the museum we just have as the accession number or the loan number, and that just gives it a title. I do already have one. So now we've made this as a component. I'm going to drag this down here, give you a better view. You can see all these different components that I've made, and Peter's Ola water jar right here. So what's great about this is that now that I've created this as a component, I can save this to any location on my computer, on our museum drive, and we can import like a whole database of objects into the SketchUp program and just drag and drop. See how easy that is? And it's already sized. You don't have to do anything. Now, just for fun, I'm going to zoom out here. So cute. I have constructed a tiny little exhibit for us. I'm going to play around here to show you how easy this is to just come in and modify objects. You can see I've brought in some other Native American textiles, a ceremonial paddle, this, I think it's a ceramic print. Might be ceramic, it might be a print. And another pot here. And I can change out the gallery color of the walls. I can do different types of flooring. I can put models in here. It's just, it's kind of a lot of fun to do this, honestly, which is great. That means I'm having fun at my job. So we've got the little pot over here. We can drag around the pedestals so that we can adjust it to the size. We can also make it disappear, but we don't want to do that. Now let's see. That just gives you kind of an idea of how easy it is. I can bring in a little drawing here and put that on the wall. I can bring in all these different kinds of objects. So I hope that gave you a fun little tour behind the scenes of one of the ways that we start building exhibitions, thinking about exhibits, and really modeling them out in a way that is a little bit more tangible than just having it on paper. It also kind of gives you an idea of how the employees at the Stanley are using our time at home. We're really excited to work on this material to plan for our inaugural installation in our new building, and it's at home. We're just building up the excitement for this, and we are so excited for you to see this in person. So I just want to say a big thank you to our museum fans and our supporters, and I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes video.